Patricia went into labor excited to meet her first baby after 9 months of perfect pregnancy. But when little Emma was born, she wasn't crying. She wasn't breathing. She was already gone. Patricia held her lifeless daughter for 6 hours in that delivery room, refusing to let the nurses take her away. But what happened when Patricia finally had to say goodbye to Emma, and how the hospital staff treated her in those agonizing hours, revealed a system completely unprepared to handle the devastating reality of stillborn births. See, we think pregnancy ends with crying babies, with joy and celebration, with families beginning their next chapter together. But what I learned from Patricia's story is that sometimes pregnancy ends with silence, with death, with parents saying hello and goodbye in the same breath to children they'll never get to raise. Patricia thought she was going to the hospital to deliver her daughter. Instead, she went to the hospital to hold her daughter's body and figure out how to live with a broken heart that would never fully heal. Let me tell you about Patricia Chen from Portland. She's 41 years old, works as a graphic designer, married to David for 8 years. After 3 years of trying to conceive and 2 miscarriages, Patricia finally had what seemed like the perfect pregnancy. Patricia had wanted to be a mother her entire adult life. She'd planned nurseries in her mind since her 20s, bought baby clothes years before getting pregnant, and dreamed of the family she and David would create together. This pregnancy felt different from the 2 I'd lost, Patricia tells me. I made it past the first trimester, then the second. Every doctor's appointment was perfect. Strong heartbeat, normal growth, no complications. I finally felt safe to believe I was going to be a mom. Patricia embraced every aspect of pregnancy. She read parenting books, took birthing classes, documented every week with photos and journal entries. The nursery was completed by 32 weeks. Pale yellow walls, a crib they'd assembled together, clothes organized by size. I was that pregnant woman who glowed, Patricia explains. I loved feeling Emma move, loved watching my body change, loved planning for our life as a family of 3. David and I would sit in the nursery every night talking to Emma, reading her stories. At 38 weeks, Patricia was technically full term and ready for delivery. Her bag was packed, the car seat was installed, and they'd completed their final prenatal appointment just 2 days before labor began. Everything was perfect, Patricia says. Dr. Martinez said Emma's heartbeat was strong, her positioning was ideal, and I was ready for what should be a straightforward delivery. When contractions started at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, Patricia and David were excited, nervous, and completely unprepared for the nightmare that was about to unfold. Patricia's labor progressed normally for the first 8 hours. Contractions were strong but manageable, and Emma's heartbeat remained steady on the monitor. Patricia felt confident that she would soon be holding her daughter. I was thinking about skin-to-skin contact, about breastfeeding, about calling our families to announce Emma's arrival, Patricia recalls. I was planning the first moments of our life together, but during transition, the final stage of labor, something went wrong. Emma's heartbeat began to slow, then became irregular, then stopped completely. Medical staff rushed into the room trying to find the heartbeat that had vanished. The room went from calm to chaos in seconds, Patricia says. Doctors were saying words like fetal distress and emergency delivery, but I could see in their faces that it was already too late. Emma was delivered within minutes, but she was born completely still. No cry, no movement, no breath. The silence in that delivery room was deafening. The absence of the sound every parent expects to hear. The doctor placed Emma on my chest and she was perfect, Patricia remembers. Beautiful, peaceful, but gone. I kept waiting for her to cry, kept expecting her to move, but she never did. Medical staff explained that the umbilical cord had wrapped around Emma's neck during delivery, cutting off her oxygen. It was a complication that happened quickly and couldn't have been prevented or predicted. They said it was one of those things that sometimes happen. Patricia recalls, like Emma's death was just bad luck, like 9 months of love and planning meant nothing. Patricia held Emma's body for 6 hours, refusing to let nurses take her daughter away. She memorized Emma's face, counted her tiny fingers, whispered all the things she'd planned to tell her throughout her childhood. I knew that once I let go of Emma, that would be it, Patricia explains. I'd never hold my daughter again, never have another moment with her. 6 hours wasn't enough for a lifetime of love, but it was all I was going to get. David grieved differently, struggling to be in the same room with Emma's body. He wanted to say goodbye and begin processing their loss, while Patricia wanted to freeze time and pretend Emma was just sleeping. David kept saying, "We need to let her go," but I felt like letting go meant abandoning her, Patricia says. She was my baby for 9 months inside me, and I wanted to be her mother for as long as possible, even if she was gone. The hospital staff was kind, but clearly uncomfortable with the length of time Patricia spent with Emma. They offered memory-making services, photographs, handprints, a lock of hair, but seemed eager to move Patricia through the process of saying goodbye. I felt rushed, like they wanted to clean up the mess of my tragedy and move on to the next delivery, Patricia recalls. But this wasn't just a medical event for me. It was the birth and death of my daughter, and I needed time to process both. When Patricia finally allowed nurses to take Emma away, she felt like she was failing as a mother one final time. The empty arms, the quiet room, and the realization that she was leaving the hospital without her baby created trauma that would haunt her for months. When Patricia called me 2 weeks after Emma's death, I heard something that broke my heart. The voice of a mother who had experienced birth and death simultaneously, with no preparation for either reality. Patricia, I told her, what happened to you isn't just pregnancy loss. It's traumatic grief combined with medical trauma. You experienced the physical process of childbirth, but the emotional process of death. And our society has no roadmap for helping parents navigate that combination. I shared with her something I learned about stillborn grief. When babies die before birth or during delivery, parents grieve not just the child they lost, but the entire future they'd imagined. You're mourning Emma's death and the death of your identity as her mother, but I also understood her isolation. People don't know how to respond to stillborn loss because it challenges everything we believe about pregnancy and childbirth. Your friends are avoiding you because your tragedy reminds them that their own pregnancies aren't guaranteed to end with living babies. I explained to Patricia the difference between stillborn grief and other losses. When older children die, there are memories to cherish and stories to share. When babies are stillborn, parents grieve a relationship that existed but wasn't witnessed by others. Your love for Emma is real, but it's invisible to people who never met her. Patricia asked me how she could possibly move forward when her arms felt permanently empty and her heart felt permanently broken. I told her, moving forward doesn't mean forgetting Emma or getting over her death. It means learning to carry your love for her while building a life that honors her memory. Over the next 8 months, Patricia and I worked together on what I call stillborn grief recovery, healing from traumatic loss while preserving the bond with a child who never lived outside the womb. First, we addressed the complex trauma of delivery room death. You experienced medical trauma, birth trauma, and death trauma all at once. Your healing needs to address the physical recovery from childbirth and the emotional recovery from loss. Patricia started working with a grief counselor who specialized in perinatal loss while also addressing the PTSD symptoms she developed from the hospital experience. Second, we focused on preserving Emma's memory in meaningful ways. Emma was your daughter for 9 months, and she'll always be your daughter. Creating ways to honor her life and maintain connection helps transform grief into love. Patricia planted a memorial garden, created a memory book with ultrasound photos and pregnancy journals, and found rituals that helped her feel connected to Emma. Third, we worked on rebuilding relationships that had been damaged by others' discomfort with stillborn loss. People who avoid you after Emma's death are revealing their own limitations, not commenting on your tragedy. Focus energy on relationships with people who can support you through grief. 10 months after Emma's death, Patricia achieved something she thought was impossible. She found ways to be Emma's mother even though Emma was gone. I realized that Emma made me a mother even though she never lived outside my body, Patricia explains. I carried her, loved her, planned for her, and grieved for her. Those are all acts of motherhood. The breakthrough came when Patricia volunteered to support other families experiencing stillborn loss. Sharing her story and helping others navigate similar grief gave Patricia's experience meaning and purpose. I couldn't save Emma, but I could help other parents feel less alone in their grief, Patricia says. Emma's brief life became the foundation for supporting other families through the worst moments of their lives. Patricia's healing journey included difficult but necessary steps. Within a year of Emma's death, Patricia and David completed grief counseling and strengthened their marriage. She became a volunteer with a stillborn support organization. Patricia started a blog about pregnancy loss that reached thousands of families. She and David decided to try for another pregnancy while honoring Emma's memory. Patricia advocated for better hospital protocols for stillborn deliveries. She organized annual memorial services for families who had lost babies. The nursery that had waited empty for months became a memorial space for Emma before eventually being prepared prepared for future children. Patricia learned that loving Emma and hoping for other children weren't contradictory. They were both expressions of her identity as a mother. What Patricia taught me through her stillborn grief journey is that becoming a parent happens during pregnancy, not just at birth, and losing a baby means losing a child you already loved completely. Here's what every person facing pregnancy loss needs to know. First, stillborn babies are real children who had real relationships with their parents. Your grief is not disproportionate to a loss others can't see. It's proportionate to the love you already felt. Second, people avoid discussing stillborn loss because it challenges their belief that pregnancy naturally leads to living babies. Their discomfort is about their fear, not your tragedy. Third, medical professionals are often unprepared to provide emotional support during stillborn deliveries. Advocate for time with your baby, memory-making opportunities, and respectful treatment of your child's body. Fourth, physical recovery from childbirth continues even when the baby dies. Your body still needs postpartum care, and hormonal changes can intensify grief symptoms. Fifth, partners often grieve differently after stillborn loss. One person may want to preserve memories while another wants to process loss and move forward. Both approaches are valid. Sixth, subsequent pregnancies after stillborn loss involve complex emotions, hope mixed with terror, joy mixed with grief. Professional support can help navigate pregnancy after loss. Seventh, your child's brief life can have lasting meaning through advocacy, support for other families, or memorial activities that honor their memory. Eighth, stillborn grief never completely ends, but it can transform into love that continues throughout your life. Learning to carry that love while rebuilding hope is the goal of healing. If you're facing pregnancy loss right now, remember what Patricia learned. Your baby's life had meaning from the moment they existed, not from the moment they took their first breath. Your identity as their parent is real and permanent, regardless of how briefly they lived. Patricia held Emma for 6 hours in that delivery room, but she's been Emma's mother for over 2 years since. The love doesn't end when the baby dies. It continues in different ways throughout the parent's lifetime. Emma never took a breath, but she inspired Patricia to breathe life into support systems for other grieving families. Her brief existence created ripples of healing that continue to touch other parents facing similar losses. That's not just surviving stillborn loss. That's transforming grief into legacy. Remember this: the love you feel for your baby who died is real, permanent, and worthy of honor. Your grief is evidence of that love, and your healing can become a source of support for other families walking the same impossible path. Patricia learned what every parent facing pregnancy loss needs to learn. You don't get over losing a child. You learn to carry that love forward while building a life that honors their memory and supports others through similar darkness. Y'all remember that. Your baby's life mattered, your grief is valid, and your healing can help light the way for other parents stumbling through the same devastating journey. When pregnancy ends in death instead of life, parents become guardians of memory and advocates for other families facing the unthinkable. That sacred responsibility is one way love continues even when life ends.